Hello, everyone. It's Friday. Wow, February is ending. I just realized that. It's Chat with Mac. We're glad to have you. For those of you that listen to us every week, we're so appreciative of your time. And for those of you that are new to what we do, welcome, welcome, welcome. How's it going today, boss?
Going good. I think I don't know if it's your side or my side. There's some bandwidth issue going on. Looks like.
It's more than likely my side. So I'm pretty sure I've been experiencing that most of the day. It's probably my side.
Okay. Well, that's all right. We'll push through it.
Yep.
So what are we going to talk about? There's a lot of things going on around the world.
Wow. Yeah, it's been a lot. So I'm pretty sure most of you, if not all of you, have been keeping track of what's going on as far as the Russia-Ukraine conflict that's going on now. And there's been a lot that's been going on even within the last 24 hours. But it's been interesting the use of the cybersecurity risk, cyber warfare, especially that's being used in the whole conflict. But we want to talk about the implications, if you will, and the possible risk as far as cyber security is concerned. I thought maybe Nadeem might have some insight into that because it's more now than ever. I've been listening. It's being used with some very uh, big impacts
Yeah.
all over. Yeah.
Yeah. So, here's the problem with cyber warfare.
Mm.
It has a lot of unintended consequences.
Yeah.
So like back in 2014, there was, uh, I think it was Russia who launched an attack against another country, but then that bot that they had released to attack the country got into Europe, did a lot more damage in Europe than it did to the intended country where what that it was designed to do. So, so that's the problem is there's a lot of cascading effects down the line outside of the region that you're targeting. And that's what the main concern is here. An example might be, let's say, if Russia launches a bot to attack banks in the Ukraine, well, if that same bot gets out, which it's very easy for it to, because bot doesn't see borders. so
Right.
so it's very easy for it to get out, and then it will, if it gets to the Western world, it's going to do a whole lot more damage. I mean, Europe, US, I mean, there's going to be just tons of fallout from that kind of activity. And this has happened before, like back in 2014, there was, I forget the name of the bot, but there was a bot that Russia released to attack a specific region, but then it got out and did a lot of damage in Europe. But here's what, I was on a cyber call this morning, and this is what a company was detecting. So typically, they detect about 70 attacks a month from Russian sources. And this is against a specific target here in the US. I won't name any names. So typically, it's about 70 attacks a month. And since this thing has started, they are detecting over 700 attacks a month.
Good Lord.
Now, mind you that since they are able to detect the attacks, that means they're also blocking the attacks. So there's no harm just yet. But the thing is, somebody's coming knocking on the door so much more often than what they were before the Ukraine issue happened, the Russia-Ukraine issue happened.
Mm.
So there is already a much higher activity going on in the cyber world because of this issue, this conflict. And it's only going to get worse. I mean, like the example of if Russia, creates a bot to attack Ukrainian banks, well, what's going to happen when that gets released to the rest of the world?
Yeah.
What kind of damage is it going to do? So there's a lot of things that are happening now, and it's more important than ever to focus on your security, your infrastructure, your intellectual property because of this heightened level of attacks. Now, I'm sure we being a small business and a lot of other small businesses, they have a security matrix. So they follow a security matrix where it helps them get their security posture in a better position, right? So there are things that they have to do before an attack. There are things that they have to do after an attack. There are things that they just have to do, whether there's an attack or no attack, they just have to do. And this is something that we kind of follow. It's the idea of a security matrix, and actually let me just share something. I'm going to paste it here in the whiteboard and share it out. See if I can share this out with everybody. Can you see the screen?
I can.
Okay, so across the top here, you see the different states. So you want to you want to do these. You go through these different states, like you want to identify, you want to protect, you want to detect, you want to respond, and then you want to recover. So these are all the different stages of how a cyber attack is approached, how you secure yourself against cyber attack. On the left-hand side, we have the different types of equipment, different resources, the devices, applications, networks, whatever have you. And down at the bottom is all the way at the bottom is your process, and then there is some items that are technology heavy, which is on the left, and then some items that are people heavy, which is on the right, which is the blue. And this is an interesting graph here. There's a lot of info in this graph, right? So if you notice, like under identify, that's a very technology heavy thing to do, right? So we have, configuration managers, vulnerability scanners, all these kind of different things that we do from a technology perspective. So these are technology heavy. As we move from the left to the right, we become more and more people dependent. More and more people get involved. Now, here's the thing. The attack happens, let me just draw a line here. The attack happens somewhere right here. This is where the attack happens, right? So to the left of this red line is everything that you have to do before the attack. All your identification stuff, your protection stuff happens before the attack. And then the attack happens. That's what we call the boom. We talked about the left of boom and right of boom. So this matrix will kind of give you clarity on what is to the left of boom, which is identify and then protect. What is to the right of boom. Notice how as you get to the right of boom, you become more and more people dependent. What does that mean? That means much more investment in resources, just because when you're dealing with more people, it costs you more. It's a much lower investment to invest in technology than it is to invest in people. It just is it's an investment heavy, resource heavy thing to do to when you have to work with a lot more people. Right. So as you go to the right of boom, you become more and more people dependent. Look at the recover. In recovery, there is very little technology involved. The only technology involved is backup. Everything else is people, right? Everything is people. Now, so this kind of will give you a little bit of clarity, and this is what every business, not just small business, but every business should follow this matrix to protect themselves. Because what you don't want is you don't want to miss certain areas where you leave gaps, because the bad guys, that's all they're looking for is those gaps to take advantage of, and then come in, and then the boom happens, and then everything on the right of boom is a much more, requires much heavier investment from your side, right? Especially when we get to the recover part, that's a huge investment. Little technology, but a huge investment. Now, across both of these sides, whether it's technology or people, you have to have good processes in place, right? And that's what we're doing on a day in and day out basis, is we keep trying to fine-tune that process, and that's why we engage with the security community. We work with companies that are kind of keeping tabs on what's happening in the cyber world. Detecting these attacks going from 70 a month to over 700 a month. That's huge. And this is only after the Russia-Ukraine conflict, right? So this is directly dependent on that, what's happening there. Now, here's another thing. Just this morning, I had no clue about this before this morning's security call. Just this morning in the security call that I had, one of the security companies is detecting the same signatures on attacks that they were detecting on attacks coming from Russia. They're detecting the same signatures on attacks coming from China.
Yep.
So what the similar tool set that Russia was using, China is using. So it's almost like even in reality, in the physical world, in the people world, China may not be on the side of Russia, but in the cyber world, China is clearly with Russia on this.
Yeah.
I mean, the signatures are there. The uptick in attacks is there, and we know these two entities are working together because we don't see same thing from other countries. Like we don't see an uptick like from Germany or UK or France or any of the other countries, even the Eastern European countries. We're not seeing that. We're seeing Russia. We're seeing China, and there's an uptick on attacks, and the signatures are the same. So that tells me that there is some organization behind this. Organization across borders.
So it's funny that spike in attacks, especially with China and Russia, comes on the heels of the sanctions that they're not only doing against the country, now they're actually imposing sanctions against Vladimir Putin himself and his prime minister personally. So they're trying to go after and freeze personal finances and money and banks and things of that nature. So it's so
something. I'm originally from Pakistan, right? And I've always wondered this myself. Why are you penalizing an entire country when you really should be penalizing one or two people?
Yeah.
Right? Why didn't anybody have that bright idea to go after Putin before this, before the attack happened?
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's a lot of geopolitical things involved, but the thing is, we know who's wanting to do this. We know that person and direct relations to that person have a lot of hidden assets in all around the world. I'm not going to name specific countries, all around the world.
They're all around the world.
Yeah. And yet nobody targeted that and that, but whatever. That's politics, so let's just stay out of that.
Let's stay out of that. But yeah, it's interesting that those attacks, and I was actually reading in the article where they were saying that because of those sanctions, they absolutely know that Russia is going to take this line down, and that their next course of action would be what you're describing, attacks on, be it small, especially, and it was interesting that they actually pinpointed this, smaller businesses in the U.S. I was like, "Ooh, hold on now. That's kind of interesting that they would pinpoint small businesses being a direct target outside of the bigger businesses." So, I mean, that's
this is so this is the bottom line, guys. If you are a business owner, and it doesn't matter if it's a small business or a large business, if you are a business owner, you need to be mindful that Russia attacking Ukraine impacts you.
Yep.
We can't say, oh, that's on the other side of the world. It doesn't affect us. It affects everybody. It affects you. It affects me. Now the thing is, how are we going to protect ourselves? right?
Yeah.
What are the processes that we have to put in place? What is the technology we have to put in place? What kind of people do we have to put in place to protect our businesses? And it just happened by chance that we had built out the Security Operations Center, the SOC. It just happened by chance. I had no idea that
Way
Russia was
before
going to
any
attack.
of this
Hey,
even happened, by the way. That's what makes it absolutely amazing. Nobody really knew that all of this was going to happen, and boom, here we
yeah,
are.
yeah, it just came out of the
It's that
left
whole
side.
being a proactive instead of reactive thing that we've been talking about from the very beginning. It's part and parcel of what we do, and this is
Yeah. So now, if anybody needs a copy of the security matrix, if you want to start to implement that in your company, reach out to Mack. We can send out this security matrix. Whatever you do, whoever you're working with, whether you have in-house people, outsourced, whatever it is, you need to be mindful of the fact that this thing is going to impact everybody. And right now, we don't know of a bot that is out yet. That is outside of Ukraine. We know there are attacks happening against banks in Ukraine, but we don't know of any bots that. Once that happens, and it's only a matter of time. Once that happens, there's going to be huge repercussions. I mean,
it's only a matter of time.
Yeah, it's like everybody's going to feel that, and being a small business owner myself, this is the main thing that I want to do is make sure that we are protected and our customers are protected. Our customers' data is protected, right? And everybody out there should be looking into this and putting things in place before the attack happens. Now, everything in that matrix to the left of boom, we need to have in place now, so that when when we move over to the right of boom, we can rely on our processes and the right people that we already have in place. And of course, to the right side of boom, a lot of your cyber insurance providers and their forensics teams and all these resources are going to work with you on that. And that's a people heavy process. But the thing is, you have to have some things in place beforehand up to the left of boom so that you can recover it with a lot less stress on the business.
Real quick, in the time that we have, this question just popped into my head. Do you think now with this happening, insurance companies are really, really going to be raking people or companies over the coals to see whether or not they have contingency plans and the plans in place? I would imagine now, after all of this going on and the uptick in attacks, that insurance companies that cover cyber attacks are going to be like, okay, we're going to be really, really coming down on you guys stronger now more than ever to make sure that this is in place.
Definitely there, as the level of attacks increase, the fallout increases, right? So that hits the bottom line of these insurance companies. These insurance companies, they are a business. They are a for-profit business. They're not nonprofits.
That's true.
So they're a for-profit business. When they get hit, when their bottom line gets hit, that gets their attention.
Yeah.
And then they're going to be looking at, okay, we want to tighten our requirements. We want to, heighten, these policies. We want to put these things in place. And by the way, people who are not meeting these thresholds, just let them go. We can't cover them. And that's already happening. We saw that before we even had an inkling about this Russia-Ukraine thing, right? We saw companies that were dropping customers, not renewing policies because certain things were not in place. So this is becoming critical. And, like I say, it doesn't matter who you work with, but the bottom line is, if you are a business owner, you should be thinking about this when you're trying to go to sleep. You should be thinking about this ahead of time. The time for preparation is almost over. So if you're not prepared, get that done now, because when these bots get released, and they're, of course they're gonna sweep through Europe, and then they're gonna come over here. It's gonna be too late to prepare at that point.
Yeah. Yeah. Agreed.
So if anybody wants that security matrix, reach out to Mack, Mack at PC.Solutions.Net, and I'll also put that in letters down here so you'll see it. And we can send out a copy of the security matrix. It has a lot of information, all those little boxes that you see, and I don't know if you were able to see that in the video, but all those little boxes are different pieces of software and process that protect you. So you need to get a good handle on those. Make sure you have all those things in place before an attack happens. Because once an attack happens, to the right side of boom, you see there's not a lot of boxes. It's almost barren land because you can't do much once boom happens, right?
Right.
It's all the preparation gets done before the boom happens. And that's what we want to, this is something that I learned, this morning about the level of attacks going from 70 a month to 700 a month against U.S. companies, right? So that's against U.S. companies. That was this morning. And then, of course, all this other stuff that's going on, with these activities with China working with Russia. I had no clue. I don't get involved much in politics. So I was like, China was always, one set of people and Russia was another set of people. But I didn't know they were working together.
Together, yeah.
But the signatures are very telling. So it's the same type of attacks. It's the same type of tool sets. You can tell it's organized,
Yeah.
and it's very well organized.
Wow.
So I think with that we'll call it a day. We'll let people think about this. There's a lot to think about. How are you going to protect yourself? What is going to happen tomorrow? Let's say tomorrow a bot gets out from Ukraine and freezes, let's say, banks. What's going to happen? I'm not talking about technology. Let's say your accounts are just frozen. What are you going to do? Can you still operate?
Yeah.
Do you have things in place that you can still operate? Those are some of the things that we got to think about. So back in the day, this was a long time ago. There was a we call it a drill, but it was a trial that we did. Like, what happens when you give a merchant company authority to put money into your account? You are also giving that company the authority to take money out. And we found out that a lot of small businesses at that time did not know this, and they were using the same operating account for their merchant companies, and inadvertently they were giving their merchant companies the ability to take money out. And we had a few instances where the merchant companies, whether it was by error or by intention, whatever it is, they withdrew more money than what was in the bank. Now the bank accounts were frozen. Think about this. You can't do payroll. You can't pay your vendors. Everything shuts down. Everything comes to a halt. So are you prepared for something like this? If a bot attacks a certain bank and accounts get frozen, can you still be operating? Do you have contingencies in place? So think about that, and we'll see you next week. Hopefully everybody makes it till next week. It's just weird times that we live in. I mean, I learned, it was eye-opening for me in the security call that, and we saw the tool sets that both Russia and China were using, and it's like night and day. It's like, yeah, that's the same technology. That's the same tool set that both companies are, both countries are using. I'm so used to talking about companies, and now we're talking about countries.
Countries, yeah.
But yeah, it's next few days are going to be high alert. Everybody needs to be on high alert. Keep a close eye on your accounts, on your finances, vendors, everything. You need to be a little overly cautious about, just because there's a lot of unknowns at this point.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of state-sponsored things happening. And the reason I say state-sponsored is because they have a lot of resources behind them.
They do.
So these attacks that are happening, they have a lot of resources behind them. And we haven't even felt anything out of it. I mean, I don't think we felt a lot out of that other than just, stuff in the news. But when something gets out in the wild from this little thing, uh, it's going to impact a lot of people all around the world. So this is a heads up. Uh, keep the security matrix in mind. Follow it. Make sure there's no gaps in your security protocol. And we'll see you next week.
All right, guys. We'll see you.